Hi guys, it's Kelly here and I'm back with another video. Today's video is featuring a fun technique that is good for no matter what type of crafter you are, beginner through advanced. It's just a really fun, easy way to add texture to our die cuts with supplies you probably already have. I am using the Lovely Layers Berry Basket, the Lovely Layers Citrus. I pulled out the Berry Sweet Summer for the sentiment, but I actually ended up using Picked with Love, which is the set that Dawn Woolsagle illustrated for this release. I have some panels of watercolor paper and have a lot of distressings. You don't necessarily need distressings for this, you just need an ink that reacts with water. You do need watercolor paper. You cannot use regular cardstock for this, it won't be the same. So first things first, let's talk about sometimes what happens and how we don't get texture when doing this particular technique, which I refer to as ink smushing. So you smush down your ink pad, you spray it with water, and then you dip your paper in. See how this is kind of like one flat wash? And now here I'm trying to add some spatters to it, but it's still wet, so they're just dissipating into that same flat wash. This is because we're working with too much water. For this technique, in order to create the texture that we want on our berries and our lemons and our limes and all of that fun stuff, we want to work with a minimal water. So you want to smush your ink down and then maybe spritz it like once or twice and then dip your paper into it. And then you can see all of that texture that it leaves on top of the watercolor paper. And this is because watercolor paper is meant to have, like, it's meant to hold up to the moisture so that it will kind of sit on top of there. Now, if you have a situation where maybe you have gotten too much water and it's kind of a little smushier than you would like, that's fine. Just let it dry for a second, add a little bit more ink to your non-porous surface. In my case, it's a glass mat, and then just dip it again. Watercolor is super forgiving. This technique is super forgiving. And I think that you'll find that you can get a really great result with basically no effort at all. I do like to go in, like you see me doing here, I do like to go in and kind of do like a light wash of color and then go back in and pick up the texture, just so I have that on there. The one that I didn't do that for was the blueberries and the blackberries, which is the last panel. And I think that you'll see it's pretty evident that I didn't do the like the smoother kind of wash first, and because that one has the most texture, but I had to add the most color when it came to the next steps. So before we get to the next steps, which this video is packed with tons of tips on adding texture, but I do want to mention that this video is actually part of the Perfect Picnic video hop release for Honeybee Stamps. And there is, I can't remember what I am on the list, but I've linked them all down below. It starts on the Honeybee channel, and you can hop along. They're giving away two $50 gift cards to commenters along the hop, and they will pull the winners July 13th. So you have a couple of days to hop along and leave some comments for your chance to win. Here, I did want to note with the red, I started off with Abandoned Coral and Lumberjack Plaid. Lumberjack Plaid is a cooler red, and so it was a little too cool. So I ended up swapping it out for the Candied Apple, just because I wanted a brighter red. And then for my raspberries, I'm doing Picked Raspberry, of course, it just makes sense, and Seedless Preserves. So I'm kind of working on like half of each watercolor like panel to do my things. I cut a ton of these. I basically cut as many as I could because I wasn't sure what I was going to need for my little fruit bouquet. But I still have a ton left. I could probably do a whole other card if I wanted to. So I'll just tuck those away and keep them for maybe a different card. Here, I did, this is funny because I did the blueprints, was it Prize Ribbon or Blueprint Sketch? It's one or the other. And then I did the Wilted Violet, and then on the other side I did the Villainous Potion and the Chip Sapphire, and they're basically like the same color. One is just more desaturated, so it has like more gray in it, but they're very, very similar. Now you'll see when it comes to the ink blending that we're going to do after the fact, where the colors do differ, but as far as like putting the watercolor down, there wasn't too much of a difference between the two outside of one just having, one just being brighter. But here, this is the one where I didn't really do the flat wash, and you can see how much texture that is. Okay, so now here's all of our panels dry. Tons of texture. This is exactly what we want for the fruit. It's going to make it nice and easy. There's a ton of other things that you can add this kind of texture to. Any of your die cuts, it's just going to make them look more interesting. Flowers like this. I have a set in this release. Okay, we'll come back to this. Here, I wanted to add some shimmer, but when I normally do like the Perfect Pearls in the color Perfect Pearl, it leaves like white splotches, and I didn't want that on my fruit. I didn't want it to look like moldy fruit, but I did want some shimmer on my fruit and the splatters, so I chose to do the colors of Perfect Pearls. So I did, hold on, Forever Green, Perfect Gold was the yellow, and then Forever Red Iris was the pinkish purple, and then Forever Violet, and then I think it's Forever Blue. Yeah, those are like one of the OG sets that you could buy. And Perfect Pearls last 1,000,000 years. When we are dead and gone, my Perfect Pearls, my daughter will still be using them. Honest to God, they last forever. And I use mine a lot. Lord, what were we talking about? Oh, I do have a set in this release, which actually I think Leah Lawson used for her video, which is beautiful, and I love seeing what everybody is making, and I love the floral. The game plan was always like when I came to Melissa and Lisa, and I was like, I just want to do a really big floral. I think it'll be like tons of fun to be able to color and have like layering stencils, and I think that like it would be just really fun to do, and it seems to be well received. But right now I have a video that's done with it. I actually was going to put it up Monday night, but the stencils and the dye are out, and so I didn't want to share it. So please know that I am waiting anxiously for that to be back in stock, and then I will for sure share my video. So here I'm die cutting these out. You do want to wait until these are dry to make sure everything die cuts really cleanly. And then I just repositioned them, to get as many as I could cut out of there. Now, here's the next step for how we're going to kind of add this more realistic detail is we're going to do some shading with our ink blending. Now, you don't have to do this. If you would rather color it with markers, you can just go directly to the marker coloring. If you don't want to do the marker coloring, you could just do this. When I share with you all the different things that I like to do, I know that it's extra. I know that. But I like to show you all the different things because then you can decide what is for you and what isn't. And so here I'm adding some texture with stippling, which is just like a series of dots with my marker. And I'm adding it only really to the side of the lemons that has the shading. And this is just another way that we can kind of add that texture in. And I didn't go super dark. Like for almost all of these, they're just 2 color blends when I am adding the marker. But you could just do the distress ink and still get a really, really nice result because we're not going to cover up the texture. That texture will still be there. We're just kind of going to enhance it, like enhance the die cut with the shading. I am using both colors that, whatever I dipped them with is what I'm using both colors for. But then I usually start with my lightest color, do my darkest, and then I go back to my lightest. I always find that I am happier with my blending when I am going back over it. That's the case. Like normally I use whatever, 3, 4 colors. But even when I'm using 2, that's still the case for me. I think it gives a much better blend, a much more saturated color, which is truly what I'm after, if you do both. So even though I didn't love the lumberjack plaid for the smushing, I did come back to it for the ink blending because I wanted that rich red. So again, just whatever works for you. Now, when you die cut out all of these pieces, the tops are also connected. I cannot remember when Honeybee started doing this, but I'm so glad that they did, because they used to all be on separate dies, and then I would have to spend all this time trying to like match them up. But now that they're together, it makes it nice and easy. But because they are together, that means all the tops that cut out do have red on them. I don't care. I'm just going to color right over top of them with green. There is a little bit of color theory there where you can shade a color with its complement, and red and greens are complements. So as long as you're picking the right kind of greens, it'll still look green. It'll look just desaturated. I was fine with the way that they came out. You can still see some of the red on some of the areas. If I was really truly like bugged by it, you could always go in with like an acrylic paint marker or like paint on your perfect pearls, and that would cover up that red. For this one, I'm not really doing much as far as the shading is concerned. All I did was I did dots of that red marker underneath the areas that are debossed for the seeds, and that's just going to help them look to be a little bit more dimensional and more realistic. For the raspberries, I went in with the picked raspberry and then added shading with the seedless preserves. This is hands down one of my favorite combinations for distressings. I just love them. Like, I just love it so much. It's so pretty. And then for the shading on these ones, we're keeping it super simple. We're doing 2 colors and we're doing U's. Okay. We're just going to make a bunch of U's right over the areas that are embossed. So you're just going to follow the lines that are already there and you're just going to make your little U shapes. That's it. You don't have to do 2 colors. Even here, just using 1 color is nice and gives us dimension. I am going to use a second color just because I like mine to be a bit more blended, but all we're doing is just those little U shapes, and that shape is already put into the berry for us with the embossing. So this is super simple and it looks really good. Like, it looked really good. So here for the blueberries, I am doing the blueprint sketch and then the wilted violet. These are very vibrant blueberries. In real life, my blueberries do not look like this. They are very, very vibrant. But I'm not mad about it because it helps them to stand apart from the blackberries. And I really like the color. I love a blue violet because I love blue. So I wasn't mad about it. So for this one, adding the shading, again, we're just using 2 colors. And for this one, we're doing C shapes. We're just making a C shape around one out, like just pick one, bottom or top, or it doesn't matter. Just one side. You're going to do a C shape in the darker color and then a C shape over top of that with the lighter color. For the bunch, for the blueberry bunch, you're just going to follow along the embossed lines there that help them be separated. And you're going to do the same thing. Those C shapes, you're just going to make sure that you keep them to just one berry at a time. And this is going to help it so it looks like there's 4 little berries clustered together. For the little, like the part where it attaches to the stem. I don't even know what you call that. But anyway, I just colored those with the darkest Copic color that I used, and then I'm going to glue them down. The bunch, that bigger berry down there by my left hand, is actually meant to go, like, to be layered on top of the bunch. All of these berries are meant to be like in little clusters. I didn't use all of them. I just used the singles. And since I wanted to use the full berry cluster, I'm actually adding a little like floret attachment here where there isn't one. But it doesn't matter because nobody's gonna know. Just me, you, just us chickens. You know what I'm saying? For the blackberries, it's Villainous Potion and Chip Sapphire, and again, I'm doing the same thing, adding the ink blending. But this is where those 2 colors differ. You know how we talked about how they looked the same when we were doing the watercoloring, well, not watercoloring, the ink smushing. Here you can see the intensity of the color and the brightness is so much different than the blueberries. But we're going back to the raspberries because they're meant to be raspberries, but we like to be creative and get more out of what we have. So we're going back to those U shapes. And this is another one. We're just going in with the darker color and doing those little U shapes helps it to look super realistic and have a lot of texture. You don't even need the lightest color. I'm going to do the lightest color, but again, you certainly don't have to. Just that one color would be fine. This is a really like these ways are really beginner friendly to start to get more comfortable with adding more detail into our cards. Now, detailed cards are not for everyone, and this might not be for you, and that's totally okay. But I like learning different ways to make my card look different than other people's. And I like being able to teach that to you because maybe that's something that you're interested in. I don't want my card to look like everybody else's. I want my card to look like a card that I made. Everybody has different goals though. That might not be the case for you, but some of these things might be helpful for you nonetheless. So here I colored up the tops for the blackberries and the raspberries, just like I did for the strawberries. And I put those on for the limes. I'm doing the same thing that I did with the lemons because they are the same dye. And I'm just adding shading kind of to like the bottom or one side, with the Mowed Lawn, Twisted Citron and Mowed Lawn. For the leaves, I'm doing the Mowed Lawn and the Pine Needles, just so that they're a little bit darker and they aren't the same exact color as the limes. They're all going to kind of be tucked in there together. So I do want them to sit a little bit separate. And then I'm going to shade these just with green, but the same exact way that I shaded the lemons. So can I tell you that today, it was nice. We've been having really nice weather. And the day before, my old boss, who was the chief when I left, his mother passed away. And so we had an unexpected wake, on Wednesday. We were going to take the kids swimming and, because it was nice out, and then we had an unexpected wake. It was very quick. She was a wonderful lady. She was very sweet. She used to come into the station all the time after her bowling league so that he could take her to lunch. But she was always on the go, and she pretty much was on the go right until the Lord called her home. He said she was at Put-in-Bay, and then she started not to feel well. She came home, and then she went home to be with the Lord. So here, I've already arranged everything to kind of fill up my card. I'm just taking the time to tuck in my leaves. So anyway, we didn't get to take the kids swimming on Wednesday. So today I was like, I had got some new, because I do love a game in the pool. I love a game anywhere. I don't know who I'm kidding. I do love a game in the pool. And so Caitlin and I do the little gemstones, to find the gemstones. And she can't dive to the bottom, but we have found a little workaround for how we play around to get the gems. And I had found this game. Let's talk about what I'm doing here. So here I already have everything positioned. So I am going to use press and seal. I'm going to burnish it to my glass mat, and then I'm going to press my hand like over it softly, and then I'll hold everything kind of in place while I burnish it to the press and seal. And then I'll be able to open this like a door, like a hinge on a door, and then glue everything down. I did end up having to scooch it over just a little bit, which you can do. And I do find that I'm much more successful when I tape down my cardstock. And then you just glue it in layers. You start with the bottommost layer, add your glue, set it down, make sure you give it a minute to wait, and then, you pick it back up and proceed. So we had gems last year, but we're down to like 7 gems. I don't know where these things go. So I bought her some new gems, and they had come, and I was like, wonderful. We're going to go swimming today. It's going to be so good. So I picked her up, and then I brought her home, and she wanted to have a little snack, and then we got in our bathing suits, and Eric had sent me a message, and he was like, just FYI, like, it's raining at work. And I'm like, okay. And he was like, oh, it was just a sprinkle and it's moved on. Like, I think that we're probably fine. So I'm like, okay. So I go ahead, we finish getting our swimsuits, everything else. He gets home. I'm like, okay, I'm going to get her in the pool. Yeah, we were in the pool 12 minutes, 12 before it started raining. before it started raining, and it wasn't like a little sprinkle, it was like a full-on thunderstorm, so we did have to get out of the pool. That was such a bummer. It, like, wasn't even worth getting wet for, and because we were excited about the gemstones, we had already dumped them all in there, so then we had to spend the time trying to get them. Eventually, Eric was just like, "Just go inside, I'll get them." So he was very kind to pick them up for us, but I was so disappointed. So tomorrow's another day. Hopefully, we'll be able to go swimming tomorrow. So I did add some shimmer to these. You do want to be careful because you can reactivate that distress ink. I did. If you look in the top left next to that strawberry, I have just like a little smidge of red. And so in order to kind of distract from my little smidge of red, I did decide to add like a little blue border. I was going to add like a drop shadow so that they looked like they were raised. But the blue works pretty well to help kind of set them off of the white without competing, because we do have a lot going on here. So I was happy with that. And then I'm doing my white gel pen. I'm doing the seeds on the strawberries, adding those white gel pens. I am adding some stippling dots to the lemons and the limes. That's another way that you could add texture to those. For the smoother items, like the blueberries, I'm doing like one swoop. For the berries themselves, like the blackberries and the raspberries, I'm doing just a little dot or a little swoop, like a little apostrophe shape on each of the sections. I ended up switching out, I told you earlier, I ended up switching out the sentiment. So this says sweet wishes on your birthday. I think that that's so fitting for this wonderful little, well, it's not a charcuterie board, this fruit tray, this fruit salad. I'm not sure. I think it looks delicious, but I eat a lot of fruit now that I have hypothyroidism. So anyway, so I added some gemstones next to that, and then the last thing I'm going to do, and this adds not just texture you can see, but texture you can feel, is I'm going to use glossy accents. And so I did that again, like a smoother line on the bigger elements, and then on the blackberries and the raspberries, I added them on like the little bumps to add some shine and some texture. I think this one was a really fun one. It was a lot of bright colors, which I love. I hope that you are inspired to give this technique a try and add some texture to your die cuts. Thank you guys so much for joining me. Don't forget to hop along and leave your comments for your chance to win, and I will catch you on the next video. Bye.